everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Actors Theater Unscripted. My name is Erica Denise, and I am the Director of Learning and Creative Engagement here at Actors Theater. And I am joined here by a panel of some of my friends who are parents, and we're going to be talking today about we're going to hear from parents and how this pandemic is affecting their parenting. And I'm hearing children in the background already. I love it. Let's go around this room and introduce ourselves. Tell us like how many children you have, where you work, what their ages are, what schools, things like that. Let's start with Ashley.
Yeah, so I'm Ashley Edlin, and I have two daughters. I have a 13-year-old daughter, Chloe, who's in 8th grade, going into 8th grade at No Middle School. And then I have a 6-year-old daughter, Isabella, who is going into 1st grade at Lincoln Performing Arts. So Isabella is lurking in the background looking for snacks. This is her time to ravage my cabinets when she thinks I'm not paying attention.
I love it.
But I am also a director of human resources and safety for a private equity company, Turnpoint Services, and we own 15 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical companies throughout 10 states. So I oversee HR for all of them. And it has been very interesting over the past several months doing that and juggling 2 kids. I'm a single mom too, so I don't have any help. It's just me.
Okay, well, we're going to get into all of that. So you're
Yep.
telling us about how you're balancing all of that.
Yep.
Jonathan.
All right. My name is Jonathan Hines. I am a father of 2. My oldest is 14. She'll be attending Butler as a freshman this year. And my youngest is 9. He'll be attending J.B. Atkinson's. For my profession, I'm a professional travel agent. So if you guys are looking for any travel deals or anything, go to person.
I love it. Shameless plug. Anitra.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anitra Durand Allen, otherwise known as the Mom on the Move. I have a digital community where I help busy moms of teens get more done in less time with less stress. I am the mother of 3 teenagers. Yes, one of them is 21. He is still a teenager. As far as I'm concerned, he is a sophomore in college. I have a sophomore in high school, as well as a 8th grader, 12-year-old 8th grader in private school. So we will talk about how that is being affected by the pandemic. Yeah. I'm also a marriage and family therapy intern studying to get my degree at Louisville Presbyterian Seminary. So I am really excited to have this conversation because the levels of distress and anxiety that we are feeling is impacting our families significantly. So
absolutely. Thank you, Anitra. Melissa.
Hi, I'm Melissa Hines. I'm the Director of Sales and Audience Development here at Actors.
Woo, woo.
And feel very honored to be participating in the conversation. I have 2 kids. I have a 5-year-old son who just started his first day of kindergarten today. And I have a daughter who is 3 going on 4 very soon. But she tells me she's also 5. So yeah, I'm looking forward to learning from all of you as well this hour.
Thank you, Melissa. Ayisha.
Hey, all right. So I have lots and lots of kids. I have Jameson, who is 22. I have Kylan, who is 8. Kinley, who is 6. Camden is 4. And baby Callie, who you will see soon, is 8 weeks tomorrow. And I am a stay-at-home mom, as well as run a business to help busy entrepreneurs to write their stories and then also develop their stories for the stage when they become presenters. So that's me.
I love it. Thank you, Ayisha. And also shown is Kevin, who is our new LACE, Learning and Creative Engagement apprentice. You want to introduce yourself really quick?
Hi.
Kevin doesn't have any children that I know of. Do you?
Your kids. I'm still a kid, I guess. I'm just here to watch and take notes and learn from you all.
Yeah, so we're going to keep him engaged with us for the next 9 months, and so he'll be helping with curating Unscripted and just kind of working behind the scenes to make sure that we continue to give you all quality Unscripted episodes every week. All right, so let's check in. How are we feeling? How's our mental state right now in this moment? Let's just do a mental health check-in. Anitra, now you done already unmuted yourself, so go on. I can see.
I mean, you know, someone asked me earlier today on a phone call, how are you doing? And I said, I am. And I really think that kind of sums it up, right? Like it's hit or miss. You know, some days I'm overwhelmed, some days I'm over it all, and other days, you know, we're able to manage the things that are coming at us. I think the biggest challenge is the fact that we are expected to continue moving forward with a significant amount of uncertainty. Mm-hmm. And that in and of itself is anxiety provoking for anyone. So I think, you know, it's really just kind of hit or miss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really feel that too. It's when everything else is so uncertain for your kids, you are the constant. And so I feel a lot of pressure to be extra optimistic but also very realistic about what's happening. And yeah, it's a challenge to balance that. I tend to be more of a pragmatic person and have a very pragmatic approach to my worldview. So to have to, you know, be that sometimes extra sunny when I'm not fully feeling it can be pretty draining. But it also, for me, has been a real pleasure to get to reconnect with my kids. It's been 5 months. Somebody said 180 days, and that's shocking to me. I went back to work when my kids were 8 weeks old and 9 weeks old, and I haven't had this much time with them since they were newborn, since they were tiny little things like, you know, Ayisha. So it's also been kind of nice to have that more time back with them now that I know them better. I know who they are as people a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's been, even though I stay home, having to, even when you stay home, you're always multitasking, and we're going to go do this, and then after that, we're going to do this. And then, so you're always on the go. And so this, you know, start of quarantine up until now has really had us all in one space, and just getting to know them deeper and spending more time with them, even though you would assume we spend all day, every day together, but just spending more intentional time with them. But as far as me, I kind of feel the same as you guys. It's one day this way, one day the next day. So today I'm feeling rushed because I have so many things to do. And so, but it's still all good. It's still all good for us.
I just take everything day by day. I mean, I've got a lot on my plate with work. I'm in an essential business, so we haven't stopped. We've actually been busier, and trying to juggle that and make sure that all of a sudden I'm being attentive to both of my kids, and especially the younger one, you know, through NTI from March till May. Like, it was just a nightmare trying to figure out how to work all day and take her through, you know, what was expected of us, you know, without really any prep time. I'm already not looking forward to it starting back up again next week, but, you know, it's a day by day thing. You just kind of have to take it one day at a time and don't get too ahead of yourself, because everybody has the same thing going on. It's not unique to any one person. We've all got the same, you know, issues through this.
Right.
Jonathan, yeah, I'm kind of on board with you guys. Yeah, I'm on autopilot. I'm not really up and down. I spent too many years in the Army to kind of like with this, you know, being stuck in the barracks in Germany and somewhere else where you can't go anywhere. I'm kind of used to this anyway. You know, in the house, I spend my time terrorizing my kids. I shoot them with Nerf guns. You know, we have wrestling matches and stuff like that. You know, stay pretty active every day. Like the recent prank I played on them, so I told them NTI started this morning, so they were up at like 5 a.m. thinking they had school today. So that's just
And you ain't right. Yeah, you play practical jokes like that all the time on your children.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, keeps them on their toes.
Shame. So when this started on March the 13th, I think that was the official day that we went like into full quarantine, businesses shut down, everything shut down. And at that time, we didn't know how long this was gonna be. And I know I thought, oh, we'll just be locked down for maybe 2 weeks, and then everything will go back to normal. But we see now that this is extended, and it very well may be extended into 2021. Whew. How have your children adapted to this pandemic from that moment, March 13th, until now? How have they been adapting to this?
So my kids have each had a very interesting quarantine breakdown. We went into it. I went into it on March 13th. I said, y'all are not going back to school. I just knew that wasn't going to happen. I'm not sure how or why. And that might have just been me trying to prepare myself for the fact that they probably weren't going back to school, so that I wouldn't have to, jump back and forth between all these emotions. Mm-hmm. But we, obviously, like everyone has said, we spent quite a bit more time together, at home doing family nights and all those kinds of things. And my son came to us one night, super emotional. And like I said, he's 21, he's still a teenager. And he was super emotional. And my husband and I were all worried and freaked out, like, what is happening? What is wrong with you? And it was after we had done what my husband called fair food night. So he cooked all of this really crappy, bad for you food. And we had fair food. He bought a piñata. We did all these things, and my son came to us in tears, and he was just like, you all always let me be a kid. And we were like, that's what you're crying about? It was like, did somebody die? Or like, wait a minute, what's happening? But I think it was just the idea that, he's 21. So it had been a really long time since we actually sat down, everybody at the table, eating dinner every night. If you know my children, Olivia is a professional actress and is always everywhere and on the go. And Alexandra is a competitive sprinter. And we typically would have spent that spring season as well as the summer, traveling and doing meets and all that kind of stuff. It had been a really long time since we sat down to dinner as a family every day of the week, every night.
Yeah.
And I just think we kind of take for granted the opportunities that we get to have like that. And, for him to have that realization in an emotional way also, I think it was telling that, they really are going through this too. Like now they don't have to go to work, and no, they don't have to pay bills, and they don't have to worry about if they're going to lose their job and all that kind of stuff, but they do still have the normalcy of their life removed from them in such a jolting way, just immediately snatched away with this, extended uncertainty of when things will ever feel normal again.
Yeah.
And each one of them has had a different kind of breakdown that way. But, I don't know that they're adjusted yet. I think they're still continuing to adjust like we are.
Yeah. I think my older son had a very similar experience. He has, so Jameson has a diagnosis of autism. He's very high functioning, and he was working. And so when he wasn't affected by school stopping, but once the malls closed, then his job closed. And so just the schedule and consistency means a lot to him. I mean, it means a lot to most kids, but specifically to him. So not being able to go, at first it was like, oh, I can sleep in. And, it seemed like, oh, well, he's fine with this. But as it went on longer and longer, and he wasn't able to get a specific date of when will we start back, when will we start back. Then he had his moment, his meltdown moment of like, but I felt like it was affecting his confidence. So it was less of tears of, you know, gratitude. Like it seems like your son was super grateful. My son, he was having tears of feeling like, well, what's next for me? You know, which gave me perspective to make sure that he knows that working is not what validates you. Working is great. But when you are dealing with the world of autism or special needs, sometimes setting goals and markers, it helps the parents kind of gauge where your kids are. But I realized that those markers and those goals, he was latching onto those as a part of his validation and his worth. So we've been able to kind of just work through that stuff. And with the little ones, they miss their friends. They, you know, they have each other. And some days, like any sisters, the 8 and 6, they want to, you know, strangle each other. But most days they're having fun. And then the little ones, you know, obviously they were already home. So other than wanting to go to the zoo and wanting to know, my 4-year-old needs to know if the elephants are eating. And I need to know if they're eating, if they have enough hay, are they waving to me? You know, he just needs to know that. So he's fine other than that. So we had a fake elephant call. I don't know how that works, but we did. So.
That's adorable. Yeah. My kids are like, I don't know how to describe it. I guess they're like burgeoning extroverts. And I saw something that's like lockdown is just absolute hell on any extrovert. This is like an extrovert's nightmare. So I've been like sort of paying attention to that. Erica, you know that, right? Mm-hmm. Extrovert. But yeah, like my 3-year-old she's more willing to roll with it, the change in routine. And at this point, it's now been such a significant portion of her life, relatively speaking, that like she's more willing to wear the mask, and, you know, she thinks it's fun, and that's really great. My son, he's had a little bit harder time, not horrible, but like the other day there were some kids down at the end of the street playing, and he was like, we better not go down there because we can't keep our distance. And that is just so heartbreaking, because he's like, you know, like in normal times, you should just be able to like go run down the street and play with your neighbors, and not have to think anything of it. And for him to offer that was just like, oh, this is sad. So yeah, I do think though, like, so he's going to go to school in person, not, you know, knock wood, but I think that'll help him a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Melissa, it's so funny that you call me an extrovert. And pre-COVID, I used to say I am an introvert all the way. I love my alone time. I do not like being around people unless I have to. And being in the performing arts, when I have to be on, I'm on. But if I don't have to be, I'm not. And I don't want to be around anybody. But now that I'm gone through this pandemic and having to be quarantined, and I live by myself, I don't have any children. I'm like, where's all the people? I need. So I'm going to be careful about calling myself an introvert going forward. Yes. Ashley, what about you? What about Chloe and Izzy?
Well, Chloe, my 8th grader, she's struggled with this a lot. She doesn't want to go anywhere, doesn't want to do anything. Like, she's just freaked out that she's going to walk out the door and get COVID, like, immediately. Mm-hmm. So she is not really left the house very much, maybe 2 or 3 times. And she's already told me, like, when school starts back up, she does not want to do in-person classes. If she has the option to do it from home, she'd rather do that. So, you know, it's kind of sad that, you know, a 13-year-old feels that way, but I understand why, because it is scary. Mm-hmm. You know, with Izzy is my extrovert child all the way. And I mean, I feel like she could just be climbing the walls all day, like if she's home all day, every day. And it was pure hell, quite frankly, from March until June, like being in the house with her all day, every day. And on top of that, like I moved in the process of all of this. So like you're going through a pandemic, you're getting your house ready to sell, you're buying a new one, moving. But what I've done with her, and it was kind of like a risk, I think, but I'm glad that I did it. YMCA started their summer camp program and they limited it like to 10 kids per class. So it was a smaller setting. And I put her back in that in mid-June when it started. I just decided that I wanted to take the risk because it just didn't feel healthy for her to be at home with me all day, every day. She's 6 years old and she needs to socialize. And her big sister, there's such an age gap with them. They don't really play together exactly. And so it just, for me personally, I think it was a good idea. I think they've done a really, really good job of like the social distancing and making sure that like they're following all the CDC guidelines. And I'm actually putting her in there next week, starting again for NTI. They're going to do NTI with her. I think it's helped because it's given her a routine and she still gets to be around kids. So she's doing a lot better. But from March, April, May, part of June, it was miserable being home with her every day, trying to work and keep her, you know, engaged in schoolwork, keep her, you know, entertained. It just didn't work. But she's scared too. Like she'll make comments about, I don't want to get corona and, you know, different things. And so, I mean, they know what's going on and you try to explain it to them at that age, but it's still hard, you know, I was thinking about last night, I was like, what kind of impact is this going to have on our kids? Like 10 years from now, 5 years from now, even next year? Like, this is something that anybody who is living right now and probably above the age of like 5 or 6 will remember for the rest of their lives as the year that we were stuck in our homes and couldn't go anywhere, right?
Right.
And then how long is it going to last? You can't answer that for them either. There's so many uncertainties that you just don't have the answers for.
Right.
And I think, Ashley, you hit the nail on the head. One of the things I've been really grappling with is choosing between what I believe is physically healthy and what I believe is mentally healthy for my children. Yep. And it almost feels like in this time period, you have to choose one or the other. Like there's really no way to meet both.
Yeah. And I feel guilty some days. Am I putting my child at risk by sending her to this program? But then on the same side, I'm like, what am I doing to her mental health if I keep her in the house away from other kids? Like, it's a hard choice. And I feel like a bad parent, no matter which way you go, you know, but I'm just making the best decision that I can because at the end of the day, like, I feel like it's worth the risk for her to have some type of normal in her life.
Yeah.
Jonathan, were you trying to jump in there?
Yeah, I was gonna say, with my kids, I kind of played mental warfare with them. So when we first went home, we watched 2 movies, Outbreak, and the second one was Contagion. Just to get the idea in their head, hey, you know, this is how germs can spread, you know. I know. Yeah, after once I scared the bejesus out of my son, you know, because he's all in people's personal spaces and he's active, likes to talk and touching and all that stuff. So for him, it was like, oh my God, I gotta stop getting in people's faces. So, but then we sit down and have like a detailed talk about like how every school year sugarlosis goes around, how that goes around, and the fingernails and washing the hands and all that stuff, and you know, so that kind of helped in the importance of one, respecting somebody's personal space, also respecting, you know, your body enough to keep it up to par and clean and all that stuff like that. Because, you know, now you started sweating on his underarms, you know, that's a whole new journey. Talk about his feet.
It took till 9?
I'm telling you. Yes. Yeah.
Y'all, Jonathan's a single dad.
The girl was a lot sooner.
I was gonna say, yeah. 9's a little late.
Yeah.
Well, no,
9 is real late.
But they're both pretty academically strong, so like reading and stuff like that. And they actually like NTI a lot better than they did actually going to the classroom because they got to wake up at like 8 o'clock in the morning, knock out their work in 2 hours, and then have the rest of the day to kind of eat snacks and Netflix and whatever they want to do for the rest of the day. So it kind of worked out for them. But I think now, the thing I see in my daughter is she was worried. She was so nervous all summer about starting ninth grade and going to Butler and trying to create new friends, not knowing that how many of her friends are going to be there and stuff like that. She was kind of robbed, and she didn't get that experience because I don't know if she didn't have classes with some of her friends and she won't see them in the hallway and stuff like that. So she was kind of treated in that way, but she also understands the reason why it's going on. And my son is kind of the same thing. He looks forward to going to school and meeting his teacher in person and getting to know new friends. Everyone's his friend, fourth grader. But other than that, I think they're pretty solid.
Yeah. I do want to take a pause for the calls. I'm going to throw the mic over to Kevin, who is going to tell you guys about our partner for the next few weeks of Unscripted.
Hi, so our partner for the next couple of weeks is La Casita. It is a grassroots nonprofit located in Louisville, Kentucky, supporting families in the Latinx community. Their mission is to empower families, providing a foundation for systemic change with long-term effects. Any donations we will receive will be split between Actors Theater and La Casita. So I hope you all will donate. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Please donate. It's very simple. Just click on the donate button at the bottom of your screen. And like he said, all of the donations received today and in the following weeks will be split between Actors Theater and La Casita. All right, jumping back in. Let me tell y'all something. Ayisha and I are friends. And so I went to her house a few weeks ago. Listen, and I don't have any children, okay? Keep that in mind. I mean, the whole time I was there, I'm sitting on the couch. We had one child running in the kitchen, coming, showing me like bracelets and jewelry, and they were so excited. I mean, it was complete pandemonium the whole time. It wasn't complete pandemonium, but I was just like, oh my God, sensory overload. I am unable. I've got to get out of here now. I need to complete my business and get out. But then I also thought, like, how fun is this to have these little people around all day long? I know that there is not a moment of just of silence.
Not a moment of silence, not a moment of boredom.
Not a moment of boredom. And I'm like, how fun is this? And so that brings me to my next question. Like, what is a common misconception that people with no children like myself have for parents that do have children? What's a misconception?
Oh, that we have lots of time, that we have time for anything. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many invites I've gotten that I'm like, oh no, I can't make that. That's at 7. Kids don't go to bed until 8. I can't do a Zoom. Stuff like the misconception is that because we can kind of organize our kids and get them to schedules and stuff like that, that we can actually do the same and organize ourselves and be to places on time. That's one thing. But then the second thing is just that when our kids, like when you were here, I only have very close friends around my children because it's just intentional of who I want them to see and experience and be around. But that noise and running around and all of that, I know what my kids need, but sometimes people on the outside can look at that and they think that your kids are being bad or being too loud or being too much. So I think it's also a misconception when you don't have children that your kids are in order for them to be well behaved, they must be quiet. That's not well behaved. That's on I don't know what that is, but if they're not quiet, that they're not well behaved, but that's not true. So I'm glad you brought that up because that is a huge misconception.
As a mother of older children, I'll say that, one of the things that I encounter a lot as a misconception, not just from people who don't have children, but from people who have not ever parented a teen, is that once they get to that age, they don't need you anymore. And that your kid's 15, they should be able to do that on their own. Well, not really, not all the time. And being in tune to your child's individual needs, as Ayisha was saying, we know what our kids need and where they are. And, it kind of goes back to the whole time thing, like where your son's 21. Why do you have to be, whatever? Because I know what he needs. Mm-hmm. And I understand what that means about my role and my job as his mom and where I'm going to fit in with that. Mm-hmm. That would be the main thing, that I encounter quite a bit, especially now that, we don't have a schedule. It's not like, we're going to be all of these different places, but they still have emotional needs that we as parents have to provide. They've shifted, there's less physical hands-on kind of stuff, more social emotional stuff. As we had a conversation at the dinner table last night about breast exams, because they need to know, they need to have that, they need to have that conversation, and it needs to come from home. So I think the concept that they don't need us mm-hmm. anymore is what I encountered.
Yeah. Erica, I think also something to what Ashley said, I think when you don't have children, but I think this is people who have children as well, but that every mom has to do it the same way. She has a 6-year-old. I have a 6-year-old, but we're doing it completely different. Both of our kids go to the same school because she said LPAS. So our kids are obviously, artistic and creative and, all of that. But my daughter didn't need the same thing that her daughter needs. And so I think when you don't have kids and you find a stellar parent and you're like, man, you do it so awesome, the tendency is to want to tell other people to do it the way that parent does it. And that's not helpful to others.
Fair.
It spreads mom guilt, especially during this quarantine time. We do not need to be guilting parents. We do not need to be spreading mom guilt. If you see somebody at Target with their kids, you don't know their situation. I don't know that Jonathan's a single dad until you just told me. I don't know that Ashley's doing it by herself, but they got to eat. They got to, so if they have their kids, but then you see me or you see Anitra and we don't have our kids, it's like they're doing it right. But so I think that's another thing is like when you don't have children or when you're a parent who maybe has had not opportunity, but just you've had the ability to do it in a way that others consider it to be right, to not guilt other moms into doing it that way. It's a privilege to be able to leave my kids with their dad and go and do what I need to do. Everybody doesn't have that. So I would say that's a misconception too. Like, why she got her kids?
Right.
Got enough going on. They don't need no extra. No extra. Right? No extra.
No, that's so true. I also just think about like in the recent weeks, a lot of vitriol online about parents' decisions of whether or not to send their kids somewhere for school or to keep them at home. And I'm wondering if a common misconception is that as parents, we haven't thought it through or weighed every option and made an impossible choice, whichever one that may be. To Ashley's point or it was Anitra, I believe, are we going to care? Are we going to tend to their emotional and mental health right now? Or are we going to tend to their physical health right now? Because you kind of do have to pick, you're taking a risk and you're sacrificing one or the other. It's not a guarantee, but it is a possibility. And so, I personally feel very defensive when I have to explain that I'm sending my kids into a school. And that's just me and what I'm bringing. I'm not necessarily picking that up from my friends and family necessarily, but I feel compelled to always be like, he's going to school, but it's in a region, he's in a bubble, and it's, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends in-person school. I go in this whole tirade and people are like, okay, but it is, it is taken into, all of this is taken deeply into consideration. And I think that's the case with any parenting decision. Starting, I feel like mothers in particular get this from the get-go. Are you breastfeeding? Are you not? Are you co-sleeping? Or, there's so many things to pick apart that it's a challenge to stay firm in the decisions you make with your family.
I'm gonna be honest, I get more judgment from mothers than I do from parents or people that don't have kids.
Yeah.
A whole lot more.
Yeah.
A lot of moms think that they can do it better, and they want to tell you, you know, that what you're doing is wrong, or that you should do it this way. It might be easier. And, you know, for me, being a single mom and having a full-time career, like, it just is what it is. I have to juggle too many things, and, you know, you have to make choices sometimes. Ideally, I wish I could homeschool my kids, but you know what? I learned from March until June that my 6-year-old is not getting what she needs being at home with me, because at the end of the day, like, and I hate to say I prioritize my career, but that's what puts food on the table. That's what pays our bills. And so whatever I have to do, you know, during working hours and even after hours for work, I'm going to do it. And then that's because that's how I care for my children financially and provide for them. And so, you know, unfortunately, I don't feel like I was able to give her the quality she needed during that time frame. So we're going to try the NTI thing and with the YMCA, and hopefully that's more helpful than me. But if not, then we'll figure out a plan B. You know, and I even looked into, like, do I get somebody to come, like, help me with NTI, you know, a few days a week and teach her? People are crazy the way they want to, like, you know, charge you for that, though. And I'm like, I don't have that kind of money sitting around to pay somebody hourly rates to homeschool my kid. Like, that's just not going to work. So, you know, you just have to balance and hope that you're making the right decisions. But, you know, it is what it is. I don't know.
You don't always have great choices either.
Right.
Yeah, you're right, Anitra. You don't always have great choices, and you know your kids better than anybody else, you know, and you know what they need. And, you know, I think you're like Melissa said, you're making the choice, and sometimes you might feel like you have to explain it, but you don't, you know, you keep moving and giving them what they need.
Right. So my mom's in the comments, and she just commented and said, my children are grown and I still judge my parenting. Mom, I'm 37. Stop it. I turned out all right, Mama.
Yes, you did. You did a good job.
You did a great job.
Yes.
If you judge me, okay? I don't know about my siblings, but based off of me, how I turned out, you're fine. We do have a question from the audience. Kevin?
Yeah, Sadiq Muhammad asked, as a father of 3 artistic children, what kind of projects can I create at home for my children to feel engaged and fulfilled when no external to home opportunities exist?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know their ages, but I'll start. My girls we have picked a word for the day. So here's some things we've done. We picked a word for the day, set a little timer, and they have so much time to create either a rap song or a singing song. Now, my kids are at El Paso, so they are already super inclined to do this stuff. But to make up a song about it or a dance and put it in there, or they can do cheer signs with it. So that's one thing we do, and that helps with their vocabulary and their spelling. And then another thing that we do is they can create, I bought like some books that they can sketch in. So they can create books and make up stories and draw pictures that go along with them. So that's some of the things they do, other than, you know, playing with dolls and acting like they're nursing babies and, you know, just doing all the things I do with this baby. So those are some of the things we did.
Yeah, we do all kinds. I let my kids drive with that. I don't want to like Mama Rose them into a life on the stage, but like, here he is. But I just let them, you know, so we get a lot of like dance parties where they plan. Sometimes they want to be the dancer, sometimes they want me to be the dancer, which is horrifying. Right now in our family room, we have like an art gallery. They drew all kinds of pictures and then decided how they wanted to display them. So their interests sort of shift from day to day, but I really just, if I'm noticing that they're like dancing a lot, we'll like turn on a song and then they'll throw out some moves, which are, it's pretty fun.
So if I think I understand the question, because I got kicked out probably because the other people in my house are using the internet. We have spent our time creatively learning all the words to Hamilton. My children are, my kids are a bit older. Olivia is a musical theater major. We would have normally gone to New York City this summer and done those kinds of things, but we actually have enrolled in some online artistic activities. So she's actually been taking voice lessons with a Broadway performer. She did a virtual intensive, which was weird because dance virtually is a little odd, but somehow it worked. And we've actually been going through a list of movies that Gen X parents need to let their kids see and discussing how that translates, in real life, but also, discussing the presentation, the content, the music, the production, all that kind of stuff. Like we've literally broken down every aspect of the Hamill film that possibly could be. But, my kids are older, so they're not going to be sitting down drawing anything. Although my youngest has somehow taken up painting and gotten paint all over my carpet, and I'm going to kill her. But, you just kind of, as Melissa said, I kind of have to let them lead, because if I push too hard, they don't want to talk to me. They don't want to talk to me anyway. So those of you who have all of this, rowdiness and noise in your house, just wait till they turn 12 and then you don't exist anymore. And they won't talk to you at all. But yeah, we've been doing more, actually trying to continue the same kinds of arts engagement they would have had, but in a digital way, that doesn't really take anything from the experience or actually even put it on them to have to create something, because they're at a point where they don't want to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Anitra, one of the questions I've been always wanting to ask you this. You have this phenomenal thing that you do on your, I don't know if it's on your Mom on the Move page, but your Facebook page, where you ask a question and no one's allowed to like help people, like counsel.
Oh yeah.
They just have to say how they feel. So yeah. Erica has the question, what are some tips you give parents to get them through the pandemic without completely losing their mind? So I have that question for you, but I want to know how you like came up with that idea, because I love it. I don't always comment, but I just love it.
Yeah, so.
Wait, hold on. First of all, I'm the moderator.
You said we could ask questions.
I'll be asking the questions here, okay? Don't steal my thunder.
Okay, sorry. Erica, ask the question.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear that. I'm going to just wait until
No, go ahead. I'm just playing.
So interestingly enough, I actually got that from somebody else, and I don't remember who I got it from. So like the first couple times that I posted, I was like, please let me know if you were the person who did this so that I can give you the credit for that. Because it was not an original idea, but it is definitely something that I feel like we need. And I don't know how unfiltered we are, but let's just say it's called WTF Wednesday.
What does that stand for?
Where's the food? And I I just post the WTF Wednesday, and basically it's, everybody needs a place to just vent sometimes. Like sometimes we just want to complain and not have somebody try to fix it for us. And so that, that's what that is. It is checking in with our mental health, giving people that space to just be for that one moment, whatever it takes to get it out there and not have to have somebody try to tell them, it's not so bad, or, you can fix this. Like sometimes that just sucks, right? Like it just sucks. And especially for the past 157 days, a whole lot of stuff has just sucked. And, we don't always get that opportunity to just vent and to just put it out there. Without somebody coming back at us. So yeah, that's one of the things that I really hold dear, especially as I move through this marriage and family therapy program and learn learn about the way, quote unquote, mental illness is categorized, which we don't have time for that. But also how we don't often take advantage of the opportunities we have to check in with ourselves. Because, you know, especially as mothers, no offense, Jonathan, we take a whole lot on ourselves. And society has conditioned us to believe that that's normal. That it's normal for us to be tired, that it's normal for us not to take a break, that it's normal for us to overload ourselves, that it's normal for us to, you know, do all of these things that are just physically and mentally unhealthy. And so I'm trying to create a space where people understand, you know what, if you can't take care of yourself first, you definitely won't be able to take care of anybody else. And day drinking is okay.
That is true.
I love it.
That is true.
So Jonathan, I want to hear from Jonathan, the father perspective.
You know
Look,
what, Ayisha?
you shouldn't have told me. You
Get your
told
own
it.
show.
Huh?
Get your own show.
Okay, but you told us we could ask questions. I want to hear the father's perspective.
I was gonna get to Jonathan.
Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna be quiet.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
What's the question again?
See?
It says, what are some tips you can give parents to get through this pandemic without completely losing your mind?
Buy Nerf guns. When they get on your nerves, shoot them. See you later.
Little pouches, cups. I got one with my necklaces.
But seriously,
the little containers when I put them in the sink. They're gone.
Child. Is Ashley, is that your child? Whose child?
Ashley's.
That's mine.
You remember me?
You remember Miss Erica?
Okay, so 2020 is going down in history as the year of the pandemic, the year every plan you had was non-existent. And I don't think we'll be able to mention 2020 without mentioning the police brutality and the injustice and Black Lives Matter in the same breath. Have you all explained Black Lives Matter and what's going on in our community and in the world to your children, and how are they, if you have explained it to them, what are their thoughts around it?
Yeah, so I definitely did, because I have a Black son that's 21 years old, who has been pulled over by the police for speeding, and that was just stupid, and I told him that. But, you know, we had to have that conversation when he was 15, right? Like, this is what you do. Because at the end of the day, I don't care if they were wrong. I need you to come home to be able to tell me that. And so, you know, now that my girls are a little older, and now that I think for them, the Breonna Taylor killing is what I'll call it, was pretty resonant. And we had a conversation at dinner one time. There was a march in St. Matthews where a couple of local pastors were arrested by the police. They were thrown to the ground. One of those people was a very good friend of ours. And my husband and I were trying to figure out, like, okay, how do we introduce that? And we realized we just had to cut through the bull and just sit them down and have that conversation. And my 15-year-old looked at me and said, you know, it's frustrating, it's scary, and it's frightening. And I said, you know, okay, well, what's frightening about it? And she said, we could be in the streets, or we could be in our home. It could be a criminal, or it could be a cop. And I didn't have anything to say to that. You know, like I had nothing to offer her as a parent to make her feel better about that, because it's true. There was no response. And I think the bigger issue that we've taken up is making sure that they understand the historical context, but also making sure that they know how to advocate for themselves. I did take them to one protest. It was a organized youth-led protest, because we are still in the middle of a pandemic. And I did take them to one protest. But Alexandra's required reading for her summer reading for school was a book called Chains. And it is about the Revolutionary War period, but it is told through the perspective of a slave girl who was sold from a family in the South to a family in the North. And I was like, I'm not sure if I want my 12-year-old Black daughter reading a book about a slave girl, kind of thing. So we had to have that conversation about why right now that's more emotionally distressful than it might already be emotionally distressful at any other time. And that you have the right to speak up for what is causing you distress. Now, you may have to suffer the consequences that come along with deciding you're not going to engage in that, right? Like if she doesn't, it's required reading. If you don't read the book, you might have to take a bad grade. Okay. I'm okay with that. You have to be okay with it too, but you don't have to just sit here and take it because somebody else told you it was required.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, as Joe Clark said, I ain't gonna need nothing but stay black and die. So, you can't. And we watched Lean on Me. That was one of the things. We went back to that. I was like, see, it's relevant in life. Nobody can force you into anything. And we have been using this time as a way to, number one, prepare them for the realities of life, that people are going to see their color before they see anything else, but also help teach them how to advocate for themselves in situations where they don't feel as if they're getting what they deserve.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Have you talked to your children about what's going on with Black Lives Matter and injustice?
So,
Ashley's awesome. Go ahead, Ashley. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I've always tried to keep my kids grounded even before this with understanding that there's injustices and, that how they should treat people the same regardless of their race, their gender, their sexuality, but my youngest came home probably the second week of her YMCA program talking about it and said that they talk about it daily in class. And so that kind of threw me off a little bit because it's not that I was upset about it, but it just was like, oh, wow, somebody else is talking to my kid about this and didn't, talk to me about it first. And what kind of message are they given to her? So then I felt forced, to really try to explain it to her. And I think part of the message she was getting is that police officers are bad and, you can't trust them. And while, yeah, there's definitely a lot of that going on, I don't want my kids to think that that's every single police officer, because it's not. There's, police officers out there that, the majority of them, I think, go into the field to do good things. It's just unfortunate that the bad ones have created the image that they have and the injustices that they have. I think that there's definitely issues within the police force that need to be addressed, but I don't want my kids to think that every cop out there is, bad and out to get Black people. It's just, I don't feel that's the case. I think there's a lot of it, but I don't think you can say the blanket statement that it's every single one of them, because I think a lot of them support what's going on right now and want to see changes because it's tarnishing, their names and their careers, and it's frustrating them too that these things are happening. So it was, hard to try to figure out, okay, how do I have this conversation with her? I want her to know that there's definitely bad things going on, but I want her to understand that, you can't put everybody in the same bucket. Not everybody is out there, doing these things. And so we had a conversation, and I know they're going to talk about it at, camp. And I think that's good that they, are exposing kids, but it just kind of threw me for a loop that it happened. And there was no hey, we're going to talk to your kids about this, beforehand, because it just surprised me, Yeah.
And Ashley, you and I, we're friends in real life outside of social media. And we've had these hard conversations before. Mm-hmm. I appreciate your perspective. But I think you being able to tell your kids that, you can't look at all police officers as bad is your privilege as a white woman. And that conversations that we have to have as Black parents.
It's two different conversations.
Totally different conversations.
Yep.
You know, we have to teach our kids to be aware of all police officers because we don't know. We don't have that.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And you know, for me, I'm Middle Eastern. A lot of people don't know that. They just look at me and see that I'm a white woman, right? And they look at my kids and see that they're white kids, but we are Middle Eastern. So people find that out and they judge you because they automatically want to say that, you know, you're part of a terrorist organization or something. So I've had, you know, my own experience with discrimination because of that. And so I, you know, fully support that we have to make changes, but to your point, it's two different conversations. And I'm, you know, I think that it's important that your kids understand that. And I've told them that too, that, you know, the conversation I have with them is much different than what a Black mother or father will have with their kids, right? Because if I were a Black parent, I would be terrified of my kids starting to drive and, you know, any interaction that they may have, especially, you know, a son, you know, I think they're even more at risk, but it's not something I personally have to experience. And you know, I wish that there was more that I could do, but I think making your kids aware and understanding, you know, what's happening is, you know, one of the most relevant things you can do as a parent.
Right.
Yeah, I think for white parents, kids understand what's going on. And if you have the news on, they're going to see it, even if you're not talking about it. So just be transparent with them. You know, my kids are still really, really young. Louisville is deeply segregated. They don't have right now, especially, they don't have a lot of interactions with people of color. And so what we're trying to do are buy books that feature people of color as the protagonists in positive stories. We're pointing out differences where that's the foundation of, I think, anti-racist parenting practices. And I think everybody can do more. I certainly can do more. And I think, you know, finding moments to expose them to more integrated settings is ultimately going to be what's key. And it's just a deep challenge right now. So I encourage white parents to just start somewhere and start with the truth at any age, because I think even the little kids can understand and want to be a part of their community.
And that's one of the reasons
I think,
that. No, I was just going to say, sorry, go
Black
on.
Lives Matter is just a piece of the big puzzle. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think Black Lives Matter is just a piece of the big puzzle. I find it sad and disheartening that my kids are experiencing racism around the same age that I did. So like for my daughter to experience racism for the first time in middle school, you know, someone writing the N-word on her award certificate that she worked hard all year to get, when she got up from the table, people making fun of the way her hair looks at the bottom of her neck, causing her to have be self-conscious and things like that. And she's a very beautiful young lady. She has a great of hair and everything else, but it's just like people, some parents aren't raising their kids to respect differences in other kids. And that comes out in school and other places. And, you know, we try to teach our kids, you know, everyone's fair, everyone is treated equally. And then this happens, you know, it's like a slap in the face, you know, as a parent, because we try to prepare them, but not prepare them for the ugly truth. And then when it happens unexpectedly, then, you know, we have to kind of be reactive, and then we have to have conversations going forward. So once that happened, I sit down with my kids. We talk about things, even in the textbooks today, you know, how they call slaves migrant workers in the textbooks in JCPS. So things like that.
Not just JCPS.
I just my kids. Texas and other places too.
Oh no, my child goes to a private school. Yes, everywhere.
Yeah, so I mean, things like that. I mean, I have very candid conversations with my kids because no one else is. Like they have they're Black kids, so that's one strike against them, you know. And then they're both they're very smart kids, and like they're very talented. And you know, that's another strike because nobody really wants to give a Black talented person a chance. We have to work extra hard to get out there, to get a name out there, to get that chance. So, I don't cut my kids any breaks, and we have those conversations, about remaining rational, not emotional in the situations, because of how things can go, and just keeping it real with my kids. I don't believe in sugarcoating, because like life is hard, and these are things you need to face now and get used to, sadly, because it's going to continue to happen. Hopefully one day it won't, but I don't foresee that happening for a long time. So I talk to my kids. We have candid conversations about it, and we talk about George Floyd and all. We watch the video. We do everything. So they're very aware, and said it has to be that way, but that's how I am with my kids.
And they notice, kids know before we do, right? Like let me rephrase that. They know before we think they do. Olivia was 3 the first time she referenced someone by their race. Now, after she said, that white boy brought us pizza, and we were like, excuse me? My son asked her, well, what color are you? And she said, orange. So she didn't really quite get it, but she knew that there was a difference, right? And so I think the challenge, that I will put to white parents is, don't feel as though introducing the differences is going to cause a problem. If anything, it's going to open the door, for more conversation. And also, don't try to apply context to what it is that they're saying, right? Olivia said, she's about 5. I'm just telling all her business. When she's about 5, she said that she thought that white people didn't poop because it was brown. That was just a misconception of the she was processing something, right? She was making a connection between things that she understood and saw that were different, but it wasn't bad, and it wasn't racialized, and it wasn't, it was just a misunderstanding. And so we had the conversation about, people are people, everybody poops. There's a whole book about it. And didn't apply any context to it, just allowed her to ask that question in that space, in that moment, and answered it at the level that she could understand. I think that's part of the challenge, is we get so afraid that if we start having these conversations, that it's somehow going to introduce a concept to them that they're not ready for. But if they're asking the question, you need to answer it, and you need to answer it honestly, and at the level that, they can deal with it. People are different. They know that. They're not, blind. They can see.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I also would offer that the impact of not talking about it sends a message.
Yeah.
Right. And it's shameful, and it's not. So yeah, that's great advice.
Ayisha, did you have anything else to add? I didn't mean for you to not say anything for the rest of the show.
No. I know. No, I wanted to hear what people were saying, because honestly, it's been difficult for us. So what we just decided to do is pretty much kind of what Anitra said, and Melissa, is just when they start talking about it, we just allow the conversation to happen. We didn't set up, because they're young. Now with Jameson, it's different because he's 22 and has some cognitive stuff, but we've had conversations on the level that he can understand. And it's more of what Jonathan said, of don't be reactive and emotional, but deal with it in a sense, like, walk it through and have sense about it. But for the littles, if they ask questions, or they say, something about somebody being white, or something about somebody being black, or, my kids still are, especially my 4-year-old, still intrigued with police, wants to be a police, thinks police are amazing. And so that's where we're letting him be. But I have been very intentional about taking my kids on through conversations about differences. Not necessarily just black, white, but other differences, and talking about, because they'll see somebody. So just an example, they'll see somebody and they're like, oh, she's so pretty. Doesn't matter if she's white or black. And I want to know why, because I'm curious to know just their processing. So I ask those kind of questions. Or if they say, this is my best friend. Why? And it doesn't matter if it's a Black or a white girl or a boy, whatever. Why? Just so they can start to dissect, like, what do you actually enjoy? What do you actually like? Because it's not about my kids make sure you have 5 white friends and 5 Black friends, so then everything's equal. No, it's about really just getting to know the heart of people and making your decisions based on that, because there are terrible Black people, there's terrible white people, there's terrible, but then there's also amazing across the board of all of those as well. And that goes in any department. Police department, there's awesome police officers and there are bad police officers. And for so long, we pretended that because someone was in a uniform, that made them superior or made them, functionally awesome. And that's not the truth. It's no different than there are teachers who are amazing and there are teachers who are not. And if your child happens to if all blonde little girls got terrible teachers, eventually we would be like, well, wait a minute. These teachers are targeting these blonde head girls. So we have multiple numbers of Black boys specifically who have been having bad experiences with police officers, whether they're white or Black police officers. They've just been having bad experiences. So it's been well beyond now that we need to make changes and talk about this. And I'm just excited that, because moms, I think women and moms, dads are super important, but moms specifically, because we're raising the next generation of kids. I've been so happy to hear so many moms, white and Black, having these conversations and having conversations with their kids and being intentional about developing friendships and going into with quarantine, not going into the homes, but really just fostering. Yes, they look different on the outside, but look how amazing they are on the inside. And our kids they're more resilient than we, sometimes give them credit for, but they see, like Anitra said, they see someone is this or that. But I think right now for my kids at the age they are, they're still judging people based on their character. So I'm just trying to tap into that as long as I can. And that's what we're doing. So
yeah. Great. Guys, this was such a good conversation and we are over our hour. And my brother has just shown up to cut my grass and I told him to stop showing up when I don't call for him because he expects me to pay for that. And I'm like, I didn't even tell you to cut my grass. Like, why are you here? Why?
He's trying to help you out.
But anyway, I do want to make one more appeal for donations. Kevin, can you do that for us? And then I have one question that is going to be really quick and we'll be out of here.
A reminder, Actors Theater is taking donations for La Casita. La Casita is a grassroots nonprofit located in Louisville, Kentucky, supporting families in the Latinx community. Their mission is to empower families, providing a foundation for systemic change with a long-term effect. Those donations will be split between Actors Theater and La Casita. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Unscripted. And I do have one last question that I do like to ask all the panelists at the end of these conversations. If you've watched before, you know what that question is. But if you've never watched, I don't know why you haven't. But you need to start watching. But the question is, what do you know for sure? And let's start with Anitra.
Oh man. I knew this question was coming and I didn't prepare myself. What I know for sure is we're gonna be all right.
Yes, we are.
Even though it doesn't feel like it right now. We're gonna be all right.
Ayisha.
Oh, I know I am loved. My kids love me. But I know I'm loved.
Do you hear me? I said that's what you think.
They love me, honey. They love me.
I know they do. I know they do. Melissa.
So two things. I know for sure that if this goes on, even if it goes on 2 years, in the vast scheme of my entire life, that's going to be a moment. It's going to be a long story now, but it'll be a short little blip in the long term. And then the other thing I know for sure is that I'm never eating at a buffet again. Just ever.
Done.
You're right about that.
Done with buffets.
Oh, Jonathan. You're on mute.
All right, I'm sorry. One thing I know for sure is that this has definitely changed the world in many ways, probably forever. But you know, the current situation won't last forever. Things will get back to some kind of normalization. But like you said, the buffets and things like that definitely aren't going to happen for me ever again. But you know, change is good sometimes. It's never embraced in the beginning, but I think all the changes that coming into play will definitely be worth everyone's while.
Absolutely. And Ashley.
Know for sure that you got to wake up every day and just keep going. You know, there's not really time to feel sorry for yourself or feel bad for the situation that we're all in, because we got to keep going every day for ourselves, for our families, you know, just for overall mental health and well-being. And I know for sure that I've become a germaphobe. I have hand sanitizer with me at all times, Clorox wipes. I'll probably stay that way for the rest of my life, even after this pandemic. Like, oh, let's clean our hands when we leave the store. Let's clean the carts off, you know. Just don't get too close to people that you don't know right away. So it'll definitely change the way that I, you know, do all of that stuff going forward.
I've changed my mind. What I know for sure is I will never pass up a can of Lysol again in my life.
Right? Lysol and Clorox wipes.
Like if you can find some Lysol, listen, you hit the jackpot. Thank you all so much for being on our panel today. Thank you to the viewers that stuck with us through this hour. Thank you so much for tuning in week after week, and we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.